Hey everyone, I'm Regina and welcome to my channel Rustic Skills. Today I am talking about the best practices on how to compost for beginners. As you can see, I have a homestead garden here. It's completely off-grid and all of my nutrients I create myself for my plants. The reason I do this is because I can control what goes in and out of my fertilizers and my compost, and also it's way cheaper that way. In fact, it's free. So join me as I show you how to compost. So why do you want to compost in the first place? Well, compost is a nutrient-rich soil that will grow really healthy plants. It also helps amend the soil. It gives it a better soil structure. You'll also have a lot of money savings because I just looked up the prices of compost and they're charging $20 plus for just 1 cubic foot. Now there are all kinds of different ways you can compost. There is traditional composting, which is what I'll be doing today. You can vermicompost, which is basically worm composting. You can do bokashi composting, which requires a fermentation process. And there's even anaerobic composting, which breaks down things like bones and meat, dairies, and fat. But today, we're going to do the simplest, easiest way to compost, and that is the traditional composting method. If you want to refer to all the knowledge in this video, I wrote a very comprehensive step-by-step article on my website, rusticskills.com. I'll leave a link in the first comment below. All right, so let's talk about how composting works. So basically, there are microorganisms that eat the green matter and the brown matter that you place into your composting bin. When the microorganisms are digesting all of the materials, it creates heat. And this thermal energy breaks down the materials. You get a beautiful, rich, nutrient-dense soil in the end. There are 2 ingredients to compost. The first ingredient is brown matter, and the second ingredient is green matter. Now, brown matter is carbon-rich. Brown matter can be dried leaves, dried grass, straw. It can be cardboard. It can be paper that is not dyed and doesn't have any wax on it. It can also be sawdust, wood chips, newspaper, paper towels, and even bark from a tree. So as you notice, all of these things are dry, and these contain lots of carbon. The second ingredient to your compost pile is green matter. This will be all your wet stuff, any type of vegetable left over. It can also be eggshells, coffee grounds, tea bags, garden clippings, and cut flowers. So a lot of the magic in composting lies within the ratios of how much brown matter you have to your green matter. And the general rule of thumb is 2/3 brown matter to 1/3 green matter. However, I have basically debunked this because it all varies on your climate. It will change no matter where you live. Now, I live in Arizona and it is very arid. And I do a 2/3 green matter to 1/3 brown matter. If you're in a neutral type of climate, you might want to go 1/2 brown and 1/2 green. If you are in a very wet climate, you might want to bump up your brown matter to 80% and your green matter to 20%. So it really is specific on the climate you live in. If you are enjoying my homesteading and outdoors content, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel right now. I also have a completely free, awesome OffGrid newsletter that comes out twice a month, and you can sign up for that on rusticskills.com/newsletter. See you there. Now let's talk about composting bins. This is a bin I found just exploring the countryside. A lot of the farmers use these to feed their cattle. So I repurposed this and I drilled some holes in the bottom and made myself a nice composting bin. Now you're also going to need a bin to transport your table scraps to your garden area or to your main bin. And for that, I just use a coffee can. I do not put any holes in this bin, and there is a reason why. If you put tiny holes in the top of the lid, you will get gnats. They will get in there, they'll lay eggs, and then you'll have tiny little maggots, and then they make more gnats, and before you know it, you have a gnat infestation in your house. And I learned this from experience. So I keep it nice and sealed tightly. I put a paper towel on the bottom, and that just helps absorb some of the juices. It does get a little itty bitty bit stinky, but it's really not that bad. So if you're wanting to get a nicer bin with a lid, or you want to get a kind of a bougie tabletop composting bin that looks nice on your countertop, I have included a couple of products. The link is in the first comment below, and if you do purchase from these links, it does help support me as a content creator, as I get a little bit of commission at no cost to you. All right, so now I'm going to begin building my compost pile. And the first thing you want to do is take all of the brown matter that you collected and okay, there's an easier way to do this. And make a nice layer on the bottom of your bin. Now I have some juicy green matter to go on top. So you're just going to make a nice layer right on top. I also, it's a little stinky. I bought a cantaloupe from Safeway, and it was so bland and almost bitter. I had to decide to chuck it, and I really hate wasting food, but I couldn't eat it. It wasn't even worth it. You know, it's so disappointing when you get a melon that isn't just beautiful and juicy and sweet, and maybe I'm bad at picking melons, but I think what's happening is they're not allowing the fruit to really ripen on the vine long enough, because they ship it for so far that if they did, it would basically be spoiled by the time it reached its destination. So from here on out, I am only eating melon that I grow or that I can buy locally, because this was awful. So I have a whole melon to put in my compost pile. I also have some moldy bread. And there is a debate on whether breads and crackers, things like that, should go in a compost pile. The general rule of thumb is no. And the only reason for this is because of pests and rodents and raccoons and things getting into your compost pile. Animals typically won't get into the vegetable stuff, but they do like this kind of stuff. And being that I have a fully enclosed crop fortress that keeps all the critters out, I can put this kind of stuff into my compost pile. It doesn't smell, it doesn't do anything bad. I just don't put too much in there. Basic breads and plain crackers can definitely go in your compost pile if it is guarded from critters. Now, milk is typically a no, but I just have a little bit of spoiled milk here, and it does provide a lot of calcium into my compost. So yeah, it's spoiled. I wouldn't do this on a regular occasion, but since I just have this little bit of milk, I'm just gonna pour it in there. I'm also not worried about smells really, because I don't live anywhere near my compost pile, but typically you don't want to do that. So that's all the scraps I have for now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cap it off with brown matter. Now I like to have a cap of brown matter because it does help keep the moisture in, and it just kind of creates like a protective layer over your compost pile. Now the next step is to lightly water in your compost. I will add probably way more water than you'll need to unless you live in the desert like me. I just want to get things nice and moist. Now, the final step in my composting process is I will cover up the compost with a plastic contractor bag. And the reason I do this is because here in Arizona, it's really dry. This is going to help keep the moisture in. It is also going to help keep the heat in, which is a huge part of the composting process. This is something that you can do also if you live in a cold climate. You can cover your composting pile with a tarp or a heavy-duty contractor bag, and that'll help keep your pile going throughout the winter. Now at this point, I just let my compost marinate for about 3 to 5 days. Then I'll uncover it, and I'm gonna take a hammer. That would be really weird. I'm gonna take a shovel, and I'm going to churn up and mix up and break up all those larger composting pieces, get all the brown and green mixed together, and then I'll probably add a fresh new layer of brown on the top. However, you do not have to do this. You can literally let this sit as is, and it'll take care of itself. Now I want to talk about things that you do not want to put in your composting pile. The first thing is you really don't want to put meat scraps in your compost pile. Any fats, any oils, any dairy, butter, egg yolks, and egg whites do not go in a compost pile. Anything manufactured like treated wood, dyed wood chips, any type of paper with a gloss or a bunch of color in it, you just want to keep all that stuff out of your compost pile. And finally, any yard waste that you've treated with poisons, pesticides, herbicides, you don't want that to come back up in your plants and also in your food. Now there are a few more things that you don't want to put in your compost pile, and one of the biggest pet peeves I have is the produce sticker. I have now trained myself to take the stickers off of all of my produce before it goes in the compost pile. I'm an avid avocado eater, so most of these are off of avocados, but everything has stickers on it now. These will not break down, so take these off before you throw the stuff in the compost bin. Big seeds. This is a mango seed. These will eventually break down, but not nearly as fast as your veggies. And also avocado seeds, so avoid putting big seeds in there. Also, big chunks of wood. I was experimenting with this to see if they would break down, and they eventually break down, but not nearly as fast as a compost, and I don't want this kind of stuff going into my containers, so I just picked these out. Dried seed pods, and these weren't even dried when they went in. This is an okra pod. I grew okra this year, but it just never broke down. It's way too fibrous. Okra is really fibrous, so I had to pull these out. And viney items. I grew some cucumbers this year, and these were the leftover vines. Maybe if they went in a little greener, they would have composted, but they just dried up and turned into this, and I just didn't want it in there. At some point, you're going to want to stop adding scraps to your compost pile. When this happens, you simply just cap it off, and then once a week, just water it in, give it a turn, add a little bit more brown if you need to, if it's getting a little too wet. And that's why I use this 3 compost bin system. So you have one for fresh stuff, you have one for kind of medium stuff that's been capped off, and then you have one that's pretty much finalized. You can read more about the 3-bin system on that article I was talking about on my website. So now I finally want to show you what finished compost looks like. And I kind of messed up because I added some fresh stuff to this pretty recently, but for the most part it's done. All the good stuff just kind of sinks to the bottom, of course, like anything else in life, like gold. And basically you just have beautiful, fresh smelling, delicious, dark dirt. Oh, that was a dirt clod. I have to tell you right now, there is nothing that beats the smell of fresh compost. There's something about it that just like reaches into your soul. It's just cathartic and it feels like home. I don't know, I can't explain it. So this used to be vegetable scraps. I'm serious, like look at it, it literally turns into dirt. It's pretty amazing.
Here's some more of my awesome videos for you to enjoy, and don't forget to subscribe.